The night he couldn't forget, rain was soft at first, little drops tapping gently against the window pane of a quiet house, tucked in a corner of the Hollywood Hills. Inside, the fireplace flickered, casting a warm golden glow across the wooden floor. Keanu Reeves sat alone on the couch, wearing a plain black hoodie and jeans, barefoot, sipping herbal tea. His mind was not on the movie playing on the screen. Instead, he was staring at the photo on the table beside him, an old picture of his mother, smiling while holding a young Keanu close. His house was peaceful, but his heart was restless. For weeks, something had been nagging at him. He couldn't explain it, but it felt like the world was whispering to him, nudging him to look closer, listen harder. And that night, he did. He got up to put his mug in the sink when he noticed the time. It was 1:47 a.m. Most people in the house were asleep, except one. Maria. Maria was his housekeeper. She had worked for him for 5 years. Every morning, she arrived early and left late. She was quiet, humble, and always smiling. But tonight, something was off. Keanu walked past the kitchen window and paused. Out of the corner of his eye, he thought he saw someone outside the gate, someone curled up near the hedge. He frowned, walked closer to the window, and looked again. He couldn't believe what he saw. It was Maria. She was sitting on a folded blanket on the sidewalk just outside the tall iron gate. Her back was pressed against the cold wall, her head resting on her knees. The rain had started to fall heavier now, but she didn't move. Keanu's heart sank. Without thinking, he grabbed his coat and ran outside. The cold hit him instantly, but he didn't care. Maria, he called softly. She looked up, her eyes wide with fear. For a moment, she looked ashamed. Then she quickly wiped her eyes and tried to stand. "Mr. Reeves," she whispered, her voice shaky. I was just resting. I'm sorry, resting," he repeated, stepping closer. "Maria, what are you doing out here?" She looked down, her shoulders trembling. "I didn't want to bother you," she said. "I didn't have anywhere to go tonight. I missed the last bus, and I didn't want to ask for help." Keanu looked at her, really looked at her. Her coat was thin. Her shoes were soaked, and even in the dim light, he could see how tired her eyes were. "Come inside," he said gently. "Please." She hesitated. "I'm okay, really. I'll wait until morning. I don't want to be a burden." Keanu shook his head. "You're not a burden. You're a human being. And right now, you need warmth." Maria stood slowly, her legs stiff from the cold. Keanu opened the gate and helped her in. He led her through the side door into the kitchen and handed her a towel. She sat at the table, still shivering. "Why didn't you tell me you were having trouble?" he asked softly, placing a hot cup of tea in front of her. She stared into the cup, her hands wrapped around it. "Because I'm proud," she said, with a small smile, "and because I didn't want you to think less of me." Keanu sat across from her, his voice quiet but steady. "I would never think less of someone for being in pain. I would only think less if they let someone else suffer alone." Maria's eyes welled up. "I've been staying in my car," she said. "My landlord raised the rent. I couldn't afford it anymore. I've been trying to save up, but it hasn't been easy." For a moment, the silence in the room was louder than the rain outside. Keanu took a deep breath. This wasn't just about Maria. It was about something bigger, about how easy it was to miss the signs, even when they were right in front of you. "You're staying here," he said firmly. Maria shook her head. "I can't." "You can," he said. "You work so hard. You treat this house with respect. You treat me with respect. You've earned a place that's warm and safe. This house has more rooms than I know what to do with, and one of them is yours starting tonight." Tears rolled down Maria's cheeks, but she smiled. "Thank you," she whispered. Keanu stood and walked over to her. He gently placed a hand on her shoulder. "No more sleeping on the sidewalk. Not while I have a roof." That night, Maria stayed in the guest room. Keanu made sure it was warm, with clean sheets and fresh towels. She cried quietly before falling asleep, overwhelmed not by pity, but by kindness. But Keanu couldn't sleep. He sat by the window, listening to the rain. Something inside him had shifted. He had seen a side of the world he had been blind to, even in his own backyard. And he made a promise. This wasn't going to end with one room and one night. He was going to do more, not just for Maria but for others like her. People who worked hard, stayed quiet, and suffered silently. Because sometimes, the people who clean up our messes are carrying the biggest burdens of all. And sometimes all it takes is noticing. But that was just the beginning. What Keanu did next shocked everyone. Whispers from the past. The morning sun crept in slowly through the sheer curtains, painting the walls in soft orange light. Keanu was already awake, sitting at the kitchen table with a notebook open in front of him. He hadn't written anything yet. He just stared at the blank page, his thoughts spinning like a quiet storm inside his head. He glanced toward the hallway. The guest room door was still closed. Maria was still sleeping. He didn't want to disturb her. Last night had been hard enough. But this morning, something in him felt different. He had seen something he could never unsee. Humility lying out in the cold, soaked by rain, too proud to ask for help. He poured himself another cup of tea and sat back down. This wasn't just about kindness. It was about truth. About how easy it was to live in comfort and forget the people who made that comfort possible. And for Keanu, that truth hit deeper than most. He reached into the bottom drawer of a cabinet, pulled out an old photo album, and turned to a picture of himself at 12 years old. His mother had taken the photo. They were in a small apartment in Toronto. The couch was secondhand, and the walls were bare, but the smiles in the photo were full of hope. He remembered those days. His mother had worked at jobs cleaning houses during the day and working at a diner at night. Some nights she didn't sleep. She just lay on the couch, resting her feet and whispering prayers to no one. And now, so many years later, he had become the man living in the house his mother once scrubbed for others. The irony wasn't lost on him. Maria reminded him of his mother, not in appearance, but in strength, in silence, in how she moved through pain without ever showing it. And that's what hurt the most. When Maria finally woke up and came into the kitchen, she looked different. Her hair was tied back. Her eyes were clearer, but there was still something distant in her smile. "Good morning," she said quietly. "Good morning," he replied, sliding a plate of toast and fruit toward her. "Sit, eat." She hesitated, then obeyed. "You didn't have to do all this." "I wanted to," Keanu said, "and I need to ask you something." She paused, a slice of toast halfway to her mouth. "What is it?" He looked at her gently. "Do you have anyone, any family around?" Maria sighed. "I had a sister. She passed away 3 years ago. After that, it was just me." Keanu nodded slowly. "I understand." A silence stretched between them, comfortable but heavy. Then he said something that changed everything. "What if we made this more than one night? What if you stayed here long term, not just as staff, but as someone I trust, someone I want?" Around, Maria blinked. "You mean live here?" "Yes," he said. "This house is too big. You shouldn't be sleeping in a car after giving so much of yourself to others." She shook her head. "You're too kind." "No," he replied. "This is what should be normal. Helping each other, lifting people up." She lowered her eyes. "I don't want charity." Keanu leaned forward. "Then think of it as a thank you for all the mornings you made this place feel like a home, for every towel folded, every room cleaned, every time you worked quietly while the world ignored you. I noticed. Maybe too late, but I noticed." Maria's voice cracked. I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything," he said. "Just know that you deserve this." She smiled, tears welling up again. But this time, they weren't from sadness. They were from being seen. That same afternoon, Keanu made calls. He spoke to a lawyer, made arrangements, and had a separate guest house on his property cleaned and set up with furniture. It was small, but beautiful, full of light and peace. Within 2 days, Maria had her own space, her own key, her own bed, and every day, Keanu asked if she needed anything, not as her employer, but as her friend. But Keanu didn't stop there, because something else had been bothering him. If Maria, who worked full-time for someone as wealthy as him, could end up sleeping on the street, how many others were suffering in silence too? He started visiting the diner down the street more often, talking to the waitresses and janitors. He asked gentle questions, shared stories, and learned more than he expected. He met a dishwasher named Tomas who walked 6 miles to work each day because he couldn't afford bus fare. He met a nanny named Elena who was sending all her money back home and living in a shared garage with 4 other people. And he met a security guard named Sam who had a tooth infection he couldn't treat because he didn't have insurance. Every person had a story, and every story broke something inside Keanu. So one night, he sat down at his desk, opened his laptop, and wrote something that would soon go viral. He titled it, Invisible Hands. In it, he shared Maria's story without naming her. He talked about how easy it is to walk past the people who hold up our lives, how we don't think twice about the maid making our bed or the janitor sweeping our floor, how we forget that kindness shouldn't be rare. He ended the letter with these words, "You don't have to change the whole world. Just notice someone and act." He didn't expect the post to do much, but within 24 hours, it was shared over 1 million times. News outlets picked it up. People started tweeting their own stories of quiet workers they had ignored. Strangers donated to housekeepers and nannies and cooks they barely knew. Celebrities began speaking up, offering jobs, housing, and respect. Keanu didn't say much in the interviews that followed. He just said, "I saw someone I cared about suffer, and I knew I had to change." But not everyone was happy, because with attention came questions. And with questions came secrets. And soon, Maria's past would come out, and it would shake Keanu to the core. The truth Maria hid days passed quietly on the surface, but beneath them, a storm was building. Maria had settled into the small guest house on Keanu's property. It was cozy, simple, and full of sunlight. She filled it with plants from the local nursery and soft music that played from an old radio she brought with her. To most people, she was still just a maid, but to Keanu, she had become something more, a symbol of strength, a quiet teacher of humility. Every evening after work, they shared tea at the patio table overlooking the garden. Maria never spoke much about her past, and Keanu never pushed. He believed people opened up when they were ready, but others weren't so patient. One evening, as Keanu sat down to respond to a stack of letters from fans who had read his essay, Invisible Hands, his phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. It read, "You should know who your maid really is." Below the message was a link. Keanu hesitated. His first instinct was to delete it, but something in his gut told him to look. He clicked the link. What opened was a scanned newspaper article from 5 years ago. The headline hit him hard. Former bank accountant arrested for fraud, millions missing. Suspect vanished after bail. He blinked. The name beneath the photo was Maria Vasquez. His Maria. The article said she had been arrested in Miami after being linked to an embezzlement scheme at a private bank where she worked. The report claimed she had moved money quietly over 2 years. Her bail had been paid by an unknown source. Then she disappeared. The photo was blurry, but it was her. Keanu leaned back, his heart pounding. He stared at the screen for several long minutes. Maria, the woman who folded his towels with care, who cried silently in the rain outside his gate, who smiled even when she was exhausted. Was she a criminal? He didn't know what to think. He closed the laptop gently, stood up, and walked outside. The garden was quiet. The wind whispered through the trees. He walked slowly toward the guest house. The door was slightly open. Maria was inside, watering a plant on the windowsill. When she saw him, she smiled, but he didn't smile back. "We need to talk," he said softly. Her face changed. She put the watering can down and sat at the small wooden table. Keanu stepped in and closed the door behind him. "Someone sent me something," he said. "An article." Maria's eyes dropped. She didn't speak. "Is it true?" he asked. She nodded slowly. "Yes," she whispered. "It's true." Keanu felt a tightness in his chest. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I was afraid," she said. "Afraid you'd stop seeing me as a person." "Maria," he said, "you need to tell me everything." And so she did. She told him about the job she once had at a private investment bank, about how she started as a junior accountant, worked her way up, and was trusted with sensitive accounts. She had a fiancé back then, rich, charming, powerful. But he wasn't honest. He convinced her to move money between accounts, just temporary transfers. He said, "No one will know." She was young, scared to lose him, scared to lose the job she had fought for. Then one day, he vanished with $5 million, and Maria was left behind to take the fall. She was arrested, questioned, humiliated. She lost everything: her job, her home, her name. She paid bail with borrowed money from her sister and ran, not because she was guilty, but because she was broken. "I didn't steal that money," she said, her voice trembling, "but I didn't stop it either, and that makes me guilty in some way." Keanu sat in silence. He watched her as she stared at the floor, her hands folded tightly. "I started over," she whispered. "I cleaned houses, cooked meals, stayed quiet. I thought if I just lived simply, no one would notice me. But you noticed." He leaned forward. "Maria, what happened to your fiancé?" She shrugged. "No one knows. He disappeared. Changed his name maybe. He was never found." Keanu let out a slow breath. "Do you still feel like you're running?" "Every day," she said. "Not anymore." He replied. She looked up, eyes full of fear and hope. "What do you mean?" "I mean," he said, "I believe you." She blinked. "But why?" He smiled faintly. "Because people can fall and still be good. Because I've made mistakes too. And because I see how you live now, not out of fear, but out of love." Tears streamed down her face. "I don't deserve your kindness. Everyone deserves a second chance," he said, "and maybe even a third." The next morning, Keanu made another post online. This one was shorter. It read, "The person you judged may be the person who saves you one day. Before you throw stones, ask what they've already survived." The internet exploded again. Some supported him, others questioned him. But he didn't care, because Maria was no longer a secret, and neither was the truth. But someone else had been watching from the shadows. Someone who knew exactly what Maria had survived. And that person wasn't done with her. Not yet. The man from the shadows. The sun had barely risen when Keanu's security manager, Darren, knocked on his door. Keanu had just finished his morning meditation and was sipping a glass of lemon water. Darren's face was tight with concern. "We've had someone snooping around the front gate," he said. "Twice now, first last night, then again an hour ago." Keanu set the glass down. "Did the cameras catch anything?" "Yes," Darren said, opening his phone and showing him a still from the security footage. A man stood just outside the gate, medium build, hood pulled over his head. He wasn't doing anything, just watching, staring at the house like he was waiting. Keanu frowned. "Any plates on the car?" He came on foot. Both times, Keanu's heart thudded quietly. A shadow of worry crept in. "Double the patrol around the property," he said, "and send me a copy of the footage." "Already done." As Darren walked away, Keanu stared out the window toward the edge of the driveway, where the figure had stood. Something didn't feel right. He went to check on Maria. She was in the garden, behind the guest house, kneeling near the tomato plants she had started growing. Her hands were in the soil, and her face looked calm. He hesitated before speaking. "Maria," he said, "has anyone from your past tried to contact you lately?" Her hands froze in the dirt. She looked up slowly. "No." "Why?" Keanu stepped closer. "Someone's been watching the house." Maria stood, brushing off her hands. "Did you see who it was?" "Not clearly," he said, "but it made me wonder. Is there anything you haven't told me?" Maria's face shifted. For a moment, she seemed to disappear inside her thoughts. Then she whispered, "I think he's back." "Who?" Keanu asked. "Daniel," she said. The name hit the air like a heavy stone dropped in water. "Your fiancé, ex-fiancé," she corrected, her voice shaking. "The man who ruined my life." She took a deep breath. "After he vanished, I tried to forget him. I convinced myself he had moved on. Maybe he was arrested. Maybe he fled to another country. But I never really believed he was gone forever." Keanu's voice was firm. "Why would he come back now?" "Because I'm not invisible anymore," she said. "Your post went viral. My face was blurred in the article, but someone who knew me, someone like him, could still recognize me." "Do you think he wants revenge?" She shook her head. "No, I think he wants control." Keanu clenched his fists. He had seen too much cruelty in life. Too many people hurt by silence. He's not getting close to you, he said. Not while I'm here. But what Keanu didn't know was that Daniel was already closer than they thought. Later that evening, Maria's phone buzzed. A message appeared. You've been busy, nice house, nice friends, but you still owe me. Her hands trembled as she showed it to Keanu. He took the phone, stared at the message, and then looked at her. We're calling the police. No, Maria said quickly. Not yet. Why not? Because if we go to the police, he'll vanish again. He's smart, slippery. He's already avoided justice once. Keanu exhaled slowly. Then what do you suggest? We draw him out, she said, her voice steady. Let him think I'm afraid. Let him come closer. Then we catch him. Keanu stared at her. She wasn't the same woman who sat outside his gate that night, drenched in rain and fear. This was a woman who had finally decided to fight. Okay, he said, but we're doing this carefully. Keanu called a close friend, an ex-CIA analyst named Jules, someone he trusted deeply. Within hours, Jules arrived, disguised as a gardening consultant. She brought surveillance gear, listening devices, and more importantly, experience. By morning, Maria's guest house had hidden cameras. Her phone was now tracked, her messages backed up, and she sent another text to Daniel. I'll meet you, just tell me where. He replied within minutes. Midnight, the parking lot behind the old bakery on 7th. Come alone. Keanu wasn't going to let her go alone, but Maria said something that stopped him. He'll know if you're watching. He knows how you think. If he sees you, he'll run. Keanu hated the plan. But he also knew she was right. At 11:45 p.m., Maria left the house. Keanu sat in a van down the street, watching the hidden camera feed. Jules was beside him, monitoring the signal. Maria stood in the shadows of the parking lot. It was cold, empty. The only sound was the wind rustling through the metal fence. Then a figure appeared. Daniel. His face was older, sharper, but his smile was still the same, calm, charming, dangerous. You look good, he said, stepping closer. Maria didn't move. I see you've made new friends, he added. You're living large now. What do you want, Daniel? Half, he said simply. Half of what? Whatever he gave you. The actor. Keanu. Double quotes. Maria blinked. He didn't give me anything. Daniel laughed. Don't lie. You're on the news. Everyone's talking about you. He gave you a house. Maybe a bank account too. He gave me kindness, she said. Daniel single quotes as smile faded. Don't be stupid, he hissed. You owe me. You think I forgot what you did. Maria stood tall. What I did? You destroyed everything and left me to suffer. And yet here you are. He sneered. Living like a queen. I earned my peace, she said. You ran from your guilt. Daniel took a step forward, too close. And that's when Keanu's voice came through the hidden earpiece in Maria's ear. Now, he said. Suddenly, the van's side door slammed open. Jules stepped out, followed by a plainclothes officer who had been hiding in the alley. More officers rushed in, surrounding Daniel. He froze, hands raised. What is this? He shouted. Keanu walked out of the shadows. This, he said, is justice. Daniel was arrested on the spot. He would later be charged with fraud, identity theft, and skipping bail. Maria's name would finally be cleared. But in that moment, standing in the middle of a dark parking lot, Maria looked at Keanu with tears in her eyes. Thank you, she whispered. But Keanu shook his head. You saved yourself, he said. I just made sure the world saw it. The nightmare was over, but the story was far from done, because Maria's journey was about to inspire something much bigger than either of them expected. Something that would reach across the world. *2. Days after Daniel's arrest, the media exploded. Ex-fugitive captured after brave sting operation by Hollywood actor Keanu Reeves and former Maid. Read the headlines. The video clips from the parking lot footage, released with Maria's consent, played across every news channel. Maria, once silent and invisible, had become a symbol of resilience, not for her past but for how she had risen above it. Keanu sat quietly in his garden, sipping tea, while reporters waited at the edge of his gated driveway, hoping for comments. He had already said everything he needed to say in his last post. Kindness is powerful, truth is louder than shame, and healing begins when someone believes in you. Maria, now living without fear for the first time in years, asked Keanu a quiet question over breakfast one morning. "What if we did something bigger?" Keanu looked up. "What do you mean?" "We help others," she said. "People like me. People who are trying to start over but can't because no one gives them a chance." Her voice trembled slightly, but her eyes were steady. Keanu smiled. "You mean a foundation?" She nodded. "Or a shelter, or scholarships, or just something real, something lasting." He leaned forward. "Then let's build it." And so, the idea for Second Light was born. It started with a single, rented house on the east side of Los Angeles. A peaceful place with 6 bedrooms, a small garden, and a kitchen that always smelled like warm bread. The purpose was simple: give women who were once in trouble a place to restart with dignity. No judgment, no questions about the past, just support, healing, and trust. Maria ran the place. She created rules that were strict but fair. Be honest, respect others, contribute to the home. She led weekly sessions where women could talk, share meals, or just sit in silence together without feeling alone. Keanu helped in the background. He funded what was needed, but more than that, he showed up. He cleaned bathrooms. He planted flowers in the garden. He fixed leaky faucets and carried groceries. He never wanted it to feel like charity. He wanted it to feel like family. Within 3 months, the house was full. A young mother named Jasmine, who had lost her job after serving time for a petty crime, now worked as a baker in a small cafe. A woman named Gina, once homeless and recovering from addiction, was now studying for her GED and had dreams of becoming a counselor. And then there was Lila, who had been arrested for something she didn't do but couldn't prove her innocence. Maria looked her in the eyes and said, "You don't have to prove it to me. You're safe here." Word spread fast. Soon, people from across the country reached out wanting to donate, volunteer, or start similar homes in other cities. Keanu received a letter from a man in Ohio who wrote, "Your story made me call my sister after 10 years. I didn't forgive her before, but now I did." A teenager from India messaged Maria, "You made me believe I can become something, even after making mistakes." Another letter came from a woman in prison, scribbled on torn paper, "I read about you in the newspaper. Maybe there's still hope for me." Maria cried when she read that one, but with the growing love came criticism too. Some people called it a publicity stunt. Others said criminals didn't deserve second chances. Some questioned why Keanu, a celebrity, was getting involved in these dirty problems. Keanu responded simply, "We all fall. Pretending otherwise is the real lie." Meanwhile, Daniel's trial moved forward. Maria agreed to testify, but her fear was no longer in control. She walked into that courtroom with her head high, her voice calm, and her truth clear. The jury believed her. Daniel was sentenced to 10 years in federal prison. On the day of the verdict, Maria didn't celebrate. She sat quietly on a bench outside the courthouse, watching the leaves fall. Keanu joined her. "You okay?" he asked. "I'm not happy he's in jail," she said, "but I'm relieved the truth came out." Keanu nodded. "You earned your peace. I think peace is something you have to choose every day," she said, "even when it's hard." They sat there a while, neither needing to speak. But back at the house, something unexpected had arrived. A letter, thick envelope, no return address. Inside was a check. $500,000, and a note, "Someone believed in me when I was broken. Now I believe in you. Keep going." Maria held the note for a long time. The handwriting looked familiar, but she didn't say anything. She simply placed the check in the donation jar and whispered, "Thank you." Later that week, Maria gave a talk at a community center. It was simple. No cameras, no press. Just a group of women sitting in folding chairs. She told them her story about fear, shame, silence, and survival. And then she said something that stuck in every listener's heart. Sometimes the only thing that separates falling from rising is one person who notices. Outside, Keanu stood at the back of the room, leaning against the doorframe, listening. He smiled, because the woman who once slept outside his house was now lighting fires of hope across the world. and the ripples weren't stopping. They were only just beginning. The light she carried it had been 1 year since that rainy night. 1 year since Keanu had found Maria sitting outside his gate, curled up against the cold, too proud to ask for help. 1 year since she had walked into his kitchen soaked and shivering, and changed both their lives forever. Now, the world knew her name. But more importantly, she knew her own worth. Maria stood on a small stage at a charity gala in downtown Los Angeles, wearing a simple blue dress, holding a microphone in hands that used to scrub floors. The room was silent. Hundreds of people, business leaders, celebrities, survivors were listening. I am not here because I'm special, Maria said softly. I'm here because someone looked at me and saw more than my past. She looked toward the front row. Keanu smiled. We all carry pain, she continued. Some of us wear it quietly, some of us bury it. But kindness digs it up, and it heals. A soft wave of applause rose through the hall, not out of politeness but out of deep, shared feeling. When the gala ended, Maria stepped down, hugged Keanu tightly, and whispered, I was so scared I'd mess it up. You didn't, he said. You made them feel something, and that's rare. They walked out into the night together. The city buzzed around them, but Maria felt calm. Her phone buzzed with a message. It was Jasmine, the young mother from the shelter. I got the job. Starting next week, daycare covered too. I still can't believe it's real. Maria smiled. One spark had turned into another. But there was something else Keanu had been planning. Something quiet. Something that would change Maria's life again, only this time. Not because she needed help, but because she had earned it. A week later, he invited her out for coffee. They sat at a corner table in a small cafe. No bodyguards, no cameras, just friends. He handed her an envelope. Maria raised an eyebrow. What's this? Just open it, he said, sipping his tea. Inside was a single sheet of paper. Her name was written at the top, followed by the title, Director of Operations, Second Light Foundation. Beneath that, a salary offer, full medical benefits, and legal ownership of 51% of the organization. Maria looked up, her hand over her mouth. You're giving me this? I'm not giving you anything, Keanu said. You built it. You lived it. Now you run it. I'll stay in the background, help where needed, but this belongs to you now. Her eyes welled up. But I was nobody. No, Keanu said gently. You were never nobody. The world just didn't see you. But now it does, and you're going to change it. Maria couldn't speak. She just leaned over and hugged him tightly, tears falling freely. Later that month, Maria returned to the courthouse, this time, not for trial, but to receive official papers clearing her name. Daniel's full confession had been recorded. Her charges were formally dropped. As she stepped outside, reporters asked how she felt. She simply said, light, I feel light. Back at Second Light, new stories were being written every day. The shelter expanded into 2 more homes, one in Oakland and one in Phoenix. A documentary filmmaker began shooting Maria's journey, not to make her a star, but to make invisible people visible. Letters continued to pour in, stories of janitors, bus drivers, caregivers, and cooks who were finally being seen. But the most powerful letter came from Maria's old neighbor back in Florida, a woman who had watched her leave after the scandal and never said goodbye. The letter read, I judged you. I believed what the news said, and now I see I was wrong. I'm sorry, and thank you. My daughter is in your shelter now, and she says for the first time, she's not afraid to hope. Maria placed that letter on the wall of the shelter's hallway, next to others like it. She called it the Wall of Light. Keanu continued living quietly. He made movies, donated in silence, and stayed close to the foundation. He never wanted praise. He just wanted to keep noticing. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the hills, Maria and Keanu sat on a bench outside the shelter. Children laughed. In the background, someone was playing guitar inside. You know, Maria said, that night you found me, I thought the world had ended. Keanu smiled gently. And now I know, she said. It was just beginning. A soft wind passed through the trees. The lights of the city shimmered below them. Do you ever wonder, she asked, why you came to the window that night? Keanu looked out at the horizon. "No," he said. "I don't wonder. I believe the world whispers when it wants us to wake up." They sat in silence, two souls who had found each other not by chance, but by grace. And as the stars blinked alive above them, Maria whispered something to herself. "I'm not invisible anymore." Because she wasn't. She had become a light, and the world would never forget it.